Two major rail companies in Canada are on the verge of job action tomorrow. We'll have more on how this may affect your daily commute here in the GTA.
And Toronto police confirmed to CP24 they are investigating after Brith reported more than 100 Jewish institutions in Canada were targeted today with bomb threats. More on this just ahead.
And about 24 families in East York are being forced out of their homes due to construction for the Ontario line. We'll have reaction tonight.
This is Live at 5. Good evening. I'm Bakari Savage.
And I'm Lena Latifat. Thank you for joining us on Live at 5. GTA commuters could be impacted if a work stoppage goes ahead involving Canada's two biggest rail companies.
And for the details, we're now joined live by CP24's Phil Perkins, who basically used part of what could be shut down in terms of commuters.
Yeah, but currently, I decided to take the GO train from Union here to Meadowvale Station here on the Milton line, just to see, how popular it was, how many people were taking it to get out of the city to go home, or maybe go to work, go to the reverse purpose on why they're taking the train. Because according to the GO Transit website, about 30,000 people use the Milton line every single day, and that is a stat from 10 years ago. You can only imagine that number is way more than that a decade later. So here's the deal: if there is a strike or a lockout, locking out or striking 3,500 workers with both CN and CPKC, that means that the Milton line itself would not be running because they share lines with specifically CPKC. Any GO Transit that shares lines with CN will not be affected here, but specifically the Milton line will be affected if there is a strike or lockout because they share the line with specifically CPKC. So we're talking with some people here. Mandeep here with her family. You just got off the train, I'm assuming from downtown Toronto.
That's right.
If there is no Milton line for, who knows, 1 day, 2 days, could be 2 weeks, how would that affect your commute?
It would, because that would mean commuting to a different, via a different mode of transportation. Take my own car, but the gardener's stuck anyway, so it's going to be pretty disruptful and really no means.
And you take the Milton line every single day?
Yeah.
To downtown?
Downtown, yep.
And so if you were to drive and then get on the Gardner and brave that, how many more minutes or hours would that add to your commute?
Well, right now it's about 50 some minutes, not including my drive from home, which is about 10 minutes. But if I were to commute downtown with the construction on the Gardner, I used to do that about an hour and a half on a good day. And then, when we had a lot of flooding and rain, I did make the mistake of doing it about 2.5 hours.
Wow. And so you're here with your entire family, or do you guys normally just pick each other up? Or?
No, so my family is visiting from the UK.
Oh, nice.
So they had a good day at downtown, and then we caught up together to take the train back.
Nice. All right.
So it was very convenient for them too. Just got on the train, were there in about 30, 40 minutes in the morning, and it was good, and that would be, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mandeep. Thank you very much, and hopefully you enjoyed our train system. Not as extensive as London proper, I'll say that, but again, so people are going to be keeping a close eye on these labor talks. So 12:01 a.m. Thursday, we'll know, is there going to be a strike or lockdown, and how many people's commutes are going to be shifted drastically tomorrow if there is a strike or lockout. Back to you guys.
Yeah, could really impact the evening commute. Phil, thanks so much for this. And speaking of the evening commute, let's get a check on that with CP24's traffic specialist, Adwa Nsiah tonight. Adwa.
Oh, thank you, Lena. Yeah, it's been a slow go on all of the major area highways. Not too many problems, but major delays, especially from the westbound lanes of the Gardner. Shades are a must as well. Sunshine starting to blind the drive as you exit the downtown core from Cherry Street out towards Dufferin through the construction zone. Even the eastbound side slowing into the downtown core from Parkside out towards Strawn. Northbound DVP, no issue, still busy as Bayview Bloor up to the 401, and it remains pretty slow on the Don Valley Parkway in either direction as you navigate across the top of the city, but also problems cleared. We do have problems on city streets in North York. Just one collision blocking lanes on Yonge right at Finch. I'll send it back to you both.
This CP24 traffic report is brought to you by 407 ETR. Enjoy the journey with a stress-free commute.
Brith says that more than 100 Jewish institutions in Canada were targeted with bomb threats all this morning.
Yeah, it released a statement, and that says this is not just an attack on our safety. It is an attack on the fabric of Canadian society. In a country where all citizens should feel safe, these cowardly threats aim to terrorize our communities and erode our Canadian values. And B'nai Brith Canada Director of Research and Advocacy, Richard Robertson, spoke to CP24 about the scope of these threats.
Jewish organizations across the country, from Newfoundland to British Columbia, were targets of this threat, as well as several hospitals in the Ottawa area. The scope of the organizations targeted is truly shocking. There wasn't a province, I don't believe, that or an area of the country that didn't receive a threat.
And the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs has released the following statement, quote, "We are in contact with law enforcement, and all indications point to these threats being nuisance emails designed to disrupt lives. There's no imminent threat. Jewish Canadians will not be intimidated. We will continue to take part in Jewish life. We will stay vigilant, but we will never be intimidated."
Well, residents of 25 homes on Pape Avenue south of Danforth, they're going to have to move, and that is because of construction on the Ontario subway line.
Oh, right now, let's bring in CP24's Lindsay Biscayat for more on this story. So let me get this straight. People are going to have to move, but they might have the option to come back?
Yeah, so it's pretty complicated at this point, Bakari and Lena. Obviously, people are being told to move because of construction with the Ontario line. There's going to be tunneling under some of these homes. And so there is the possibility that maybe they could move back. I will get to that. But first off, I just want to kind of break down the details of this, because that possibility is just a possibility right now. Obviously, the construction has to happen first, and then there will be an assessment to see whether these homes are even safe to move back into. But we're talking about 25 different properties on Pape Avenue, as you mentioned, between Langley and Riverdale Avenue. So 25 homes, as well as a brand new daycare. And residents in this area, these Riverdale residents, say that they're being told they need to leave and vacate their homes by November 1st, 2025. So that's just over a year away, because Metrolinx is acquiring these homes for the construction because of safety issues that might potentially be a problem after the construction with the tunneling. There could be some structural impacts, and Metrolinx says it's only acquiring properties that are absolutely necessary and out of an abundance of caution. So obviously, this is for safety reasons, and residents are saying that what they're frustrated by is the fact that in the meetings and town halls so far, they've been told they will not need to leave their homes, and now they're being told the opposite. We heard from residents today. Have a listen.
We've all been attending all the community meetings with Metrolinx for the last few years, ever since the Ontario line was, brought up, and we were guaranteed that our houses weren't going to be impacted, and they did bore samples, they did drilling, everything was fine. So people here were feeling fairly secure that our houses, were going to be spared. And I think that's what's taken us by surprise, is the, abruptness of it, the short notice, and the fact that, we're now going into a real estate market that is not very kind to us.
They already took houses in front of the street, and the people in front, they were not happy, and they had to leave anyway. And now they are telling us just suddenly like that our houses are going to be demolished, and they don't even think about they didn't have any consideration. Like our kids they are affected by this, our lifestyle, our economically, in every aspect, we are being affected.
So Metrolinx says that it is working with homeowners and tenants to come to some kind of fair agreement so that everyone is compensated properly. They're also working with relocation specialists who will be working with these people to relocate them somewhere. But yes, there is still the option, Metrolinx says, potentially, Bakari and Lena, that people would be able to move back into their homes after the construction is finished. But again, we won't know until that construction is done and a proper assessment has been done on every building to make sure they're structurally safe. Only then can we really discuss or really look at the opportunity or the potential for people to move back into their homes. So definitely troubling news tonight for a lot of Riverdale residents. Still a lot of questions for sure. Lena, Bakari?
Yeah, that is for sure. Lindsay Biscayat live in studio tonight. Thank you, Lindsay. Meantime, a Toronto police investigation into tow truck-related crimes has led to murder charges against 2 teenage boys.
CP24's crime analyst Steve Ryan joins us live with the details. Steve, these 2 suspects, they're familiar to police, right?
Well, both of those accused now, Bakari, a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old, who are charged with a total of 155 criminal offenses, including a first-degree murder charge. Police tell us today that both of these young people were one was out on a judicial release, one was out on a criminal release, and the other one had a weapons prohibition of Section 100, which certainly does suggest that they were in before the courts as well, and as part of their sentencing conditions, they were to not possess any weapons. So this Project Beacon was started as a result of a tow truck turf war that has been ongoing, taking place most of it in the east end of the city. So as a result, the police started this project back in June. It's resulted in 4 people being arrested, 177 charges in total, and 155 of those charges can go towards a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old, and both are charged with the first-degree murder as well. Police alleged that back in July that they were responsible for shooting a 28-year-old man who was sitting in his car out in Scarborough. So during our press conference today, we did hear from Chief Demkew, and here is some of his remarks. Let's have a listen.
While we continue to work to get firearms off our streets, police, social agencies, school boards, NGOs, and all levels of government must work together to intervene long before a young person gets involved in criminal activity. A whole system approach with a public health lens is at the core of our work with our partners to address gun violence.
Now, police also allege that these 2 young people were guns for hire, and that others involved in the tow truck industry hired the 2 of them to commit 11 firearms offenses, of which 1 was a first-degree murder charge as well. So 11 in total, 1 homicide, and 10 firearms offenses as well. So back to the desk.
All right, Steve Ryan, live outside Toronto Police Headquarters tonight. Steve, thanks so much for this. 3 young people, including a 12-year-old girl, have been arrested in a shooting in Cambridge.
The information that we have right now is that the 3 accused approached the victim and at one point were inside the vehicle. Some kind of disturbance occurred inside the vehicle, and the vehicle went off the road and into the Grand River.
Well, the shooting early Sunday morning had left a 22-year-old man with serious injuries. A 17-year-old boy and a 14-year-old girl were also arrested. Police say that the homes of all 3 accused were searched as part of the investigation. A gun was recovered. They're facing multiple charges, including robbery with a firearm and aggravated assault.
No injuries after multiple shots were fired at a home in King Township earlier this week. And now York police are trying to find the gunman.
This security camera, it captured the moment that 2 suspects, they got out of a black SUV and started shooting. This is at a house near Paradise Valley Trail and Anderson Cove. This happened just after 3:30 in the morning on Monday. And police say that the house was not occupied at the time. Investigators believe that this was a targeted shooting. So anyone with information, you're asked to come forward.
And 14 girls accused in the fatal stabbing of a homeless Toronto man will stand trial early next year. 2 of the teens will go before a jury in Superior Court in January and the other 2 in May. Court heard the case has been split into 2 due to scheduling issues. 3 of the girls are charged with second-degree murder and 1 with manslaughter. This is in the death of Kenneth Lee. The 59-year-old man was killed after he was swarmed and stabbed by a group of girls in December 2022. 4 girls have already pleaded guilty in the case, 3 to manslaughter and 1 to assault causing bodily harm and assault with a weapon.
Well, a rally was held outside a Toronto MP's office today. This is in support of a man who is from Kenya. He's facing deportation.
Yeah, Charles Mwangi arrived in Canada in search of safety because of his sexuality, but he could be deported in just a few days. CTV Toronto's Beth McDonnell has that story tonight.
My mind is confused because I don't know what can happen to me tomorrow. Yeah.
With a petition signed by 2,000 people and a protest alongside supporters outside the local MP's office, Charles Mwangi made a desperate attempt to reverse a deportation order, sending him back to Kenya on Sunday.
It's something the government need to consider all. It's here we are talking about life and death. Yeah. This is my life.
The 48-year-old father of 3 is bisexual. He claimed asylum in 2019 and worked on the front lines of the pandemic as a PSW, cook and cleaner, making the Jane and Finch Black Creek neighborhood his home. Mwangi fears persecution by his local Kenyan community if he returns.
We all believe Canada is a safe haven for LGBTQ people.
Yeah.
But when you come here, things turn opposite.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't know how I can explain my sexuality to anybody.
Mwangi's housemate, Reverend Susan Karanja, says over the years she has watched him work hard to support his family in Kenya and can't accept to see him leave.
No. This one will not go. I wouldn't want him to go. I have prayed about it. I have talked to him. We have cried together. I have counseled him as a pastor. I have talked to him. I'm like his emotional big sister.
Shame! Shame! This is disgusting that this government continues to exploit the labor of migrant workers.
The gathering outside was tense at times. Initially, a staff member from the office agreed to meet with Mwangi and some of his advocates. That got canceled, then rescheduled. Eventually, Mwangi delivered the petition and went inside to plead his case. In the end, the protest was somewhat productive. Mwangi and his supporters say the MP's office has agreed to contact the immigration minister and reconnect with them tomorrow in the hopes of stopping the deportation order. Beth McDonnell, CTV News.
It's 5:16, 21 degrees. This is Live at 5.
In the U.S., the Democratic National Convention continues in Chicago. We'll have more on what's happening there tonight. Stay with us.
More Democratic heavy hitters are set to address the party's national convention in Chicago tonight.
Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz is among the speakers who will headline the third day of the gathering. He'll accept the nomination to be on the presidential ticket under Vice President Kamala Harris. Organizers say the theme for tonight is a fight for our freedoms as the party tries to make the case that fundamental freedoms will be at risk if Donald Trump becomes president again. And CTV News chief political correspondent Vashi Kapelas, well, she is in Chicago for the DNC and has more on what to expect from speakers tonight, including former President Bill Clinton.
I'm very curious to see if he kind of sticks in line with both his wife, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and both of the Obamas last night and goes hard at Trump. Like, they were throwing shade nonstop last night. So was Hillary Clinton. There are a number of different examples, clips even that are going viral that involve the crowd size or Michelle Obama referencing the Trump comment about black jobs, Hillary Clinton allowing the crowd to chant lock him up. I'm very curious to see where Bill Clinton fits in to all of that and how he goes after Trump, because he hasn't been necessarily as much in the public as the other three. And then where Tim Walz is concerned, I'm curious to see if he does that, because my understanding from organizers is it's everyone else who's planning to go low, and the candidates, the VP and her designated VP, I should say, they're going to try and go high, talk more about the future. So I'm curious to see if that comes to fruition.
And former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi will also speak at the convention tonight.
And Donald Trump, well, he held a rally in North Carolina today, his first outdoor rally since surviving the assassination attempt that took place last month.
The Republican nominee is on a week-long trip across the U.S. to draw attention away from Democrats and their national convention. He spoke from behind a podium surrounded by panes of bulletproof glass, part of ramped-up security measures. Well, Trump rallied against Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris. And he also says that if he were president, the world would be more peaceful.
Everybody said, oh, he's going to start wars with his attitude. No, my attitude kept us out of wars. I stopped wars with phone calls. Russia should have never happened. With Ukraine, would have never happened if I were president. Would have never happened. Nope, there was no talk of that. Would have never, ever happened with Putin, would have never happened. And Israel, October 7th, would have never happened. Iran would have never done that. They had very little money at that point. Now they're rich as hell. But Biden allowed that to happen, and Kamala.
North Carolina is a key battleground state in this election, and Trump won the state easily back in 2016.
Okay, taking a look overseas right now, divers, they've now recovered 5 bodies from the wreck of a super yacht off the coast of Sicily.
British tech tycoon Mike Lynch and his daughter are among the 6 people still unaccounted for since that boat capsized during a storm on Monday. 1 person has yet to be recovered. The yacht is about 50 meters below the surface, far deeper than most recreational divers are certified for. 15 of the 22 people aboard survived, while the body of the onboard chef, reported to be Canadian, was recovered.
It's now 5:21, 21 degrees. This is Live at 5.
The CNE is reporting lackluster attendance over the first weekend of the fair. We'll have more on this coming up. Stay with us.
A by-election has been called to fill the seat at Queen's Park vacated by Todd Smith.
Premier Doug Ford announced the by-election in Bay of Quinte for September 19th. Smith resigned as education minister and MPP for the Eastern Ontario riding last week to pursue private sector opportunities. The Ford government has now tapped Tyler Alsop, a councillor in Belleville, as its candidate to replace Smith.
Well, the weather didn't help attendance during opening weekend at the CNE.
Now, severe weather warnings and cooler temperatures on Saturday kept a lot of visitors away. The threat of lightning, that also led to the temporary closure of rides and banned shell shows. Well, they had to be paused several times. The CEO of the CNE says ticket sales were lower on Sunday and Monday as well.
We had to close down rides, open them, close them, open them. And also preparation for things like the band shell, was on and off 4 or 5 times. So, speaking to our operations people, they thought it was one of the most testing days in memory. That said, we've had a lot worse. We were blacked out for 4 days in 2003. So we're not blacked out for sure, and we're looking forward.
The CNE continues through September 2nd.
It is now 5:25, 21 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
So after the break, we're going to catch up with singing and dancing legend Pape Abdul. Straight up. Now tell me. You're not going to finish it?
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Oh,
Stay with us.
Pop star Pape Abdul sat down with CP24 today. She gets ready to kick off a tour across Canada next month.
It's always about the connection to the people that have supported me and loved me for decades and decades. It's like having that connection is everything. And my happy place is performing on stage.
Abdul's Straight Up to Canada tour will take her to more than 20 stops across the country. The tour begins on September 25th in Victoria, BC. She was in the building.
I know she was in the building, and I'm upset because I didn't get a chance to talk to her. You did.
Bakari's really jealous about this. Not to make you more jealous, but she was lovely.
You know why I was late getting here? Toronto traffic. That's why I didn't get a chance to see her anything or say hello or anything. Nobody could stall her for me for a few minutes just so that I could say hello.
She really was so nice. I'm sorry, Bakari. You missed out. Next time. It's 5:28, 21 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
Well, nationwide job action's looming tomorrow, and its impact may affect thousands of commuters right here in the GTA. We're going to have more on this just ahead. Two major rail companies in Canada are on the verge of job action tomorrow. We're going to tell you the effect on your daily commute right here in the GTA.
The Premier dismisses talk of an early election call. However, politicians have been spending the summer nominating candidates and canvassing just in case. We'll tell you more about that tonight.
And about 24 families in East York are being forced out of their homes due to construction for the Ontario line.
You're watching Live at 5. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Lena Ladifat.
And I'm Bakari Savage. GTA commuters could be impacted if a work stoppage goes ahead involving Canada's two biggest rail companies.
For details, we're joined live by CP24's Phil Perkins. You've been speaking with commuters. What has the reaction been like, Phil?
Well, Lena, Bakari, speaking to some commuters here getting off at Meadowvale, which is part of the Milton GO line here, they all are very aware that they have to basically stay up until 12:01 a.m. Thursday morning to try to figure out if CN and CPKC will be locked out or be going on strike if a new negotiation is not ratified at some point before 12:01 a.m. on Thursday. Because if there is a strike or lockout, people who rely on the Milton GO line specifically because it shares a line with CPKC, which owns the rail here, so they share it. So if it is locked out or on strike, that means that there are no GO trains that are going to be running on the Milton GO line. That connects people all the way from Halton Hills and Milton through to Mississauga, then to Union and back. They don't have all-day GO service, but it serves at least 30,000 people every single year. That's a stat from 10 years ago. You can only imagine that that is growing because Milton, if you look it up, is one of the fastest growing municipalities in the province. And so people here are very aware that they might have to find another way to get to work for the foreseeable future if there is a strike or lockout. And we heard from some people getting off the train today, and they said they're already contemplating how they're going to get to work tomorrow if there is a lockout. Here's what they had to say.
Because that would mean commuting to a different, via a different mode of transportation, take my own car, but the gardener's stuck anyway, so it's going to be pretty disruptful.
It will definitely affect my day because I work out of downtown, and this is the best way for me to commute to downtown, so it is definitely going to affect my work tomorrow.
How would you get downtown?
I'll either work from home or I will probably see to take TTC or some other mode of transport.
And again, this is it's going to affect a lot of people, including local economies as well, especially if people are trying to get downtown to go to work. Premier Doug Ford talked about how a strike or lockout could affect small businesses.
Workers and businesses here in St. Catharines, throughout Ontario and across North America, are counting on all parties to come together to avoid a strike and reach an agreement. Any disruptions in rail service would hurt small businesses, medium and large, that rely on shipments, drive up costs for groceries and essential impact on public safety, and only worsen the challenges many families and communities are already facing.
Okay, Premier Ford was talking about how this could affect small businesses, no doubt. CN and CPKC carry about $1 billion worth of goods every single day, but he was in Niagara region and just want to let people know. So if there is a strike or a lockout, every other line, including the Up Express, will not be affected. So if you were wanting to take the GO train to Niagara Falls or St. Catharines and back, that would not be affected. It is just those people who rely on the Milton GO line that'll be directly affected by this. And as you heard from some of the commuters here, that's going to add anywhere between another 30 minutes to another hour to their commute, even longer, because if people are going to be getting into their cars and getting on the Gardiner, which we know is already slow, that's tens of thousands more people just adding to the traffic. So be very interesting to see what happens next couple hours. Back to you guys.
Yeah, that would not be fun. Phil Perkins live in Meadowvale tonight. Phil, thanks so much. And as Phil was talking about, a strike could put more people on the roads. And speaking of that, let's get a check on the roads tonight with Adjoa. How goes that evening commute?
It's a busy one, Alina. Now very slow. We don't want to multiply that drive, and adding to the slowdowns, major problems happening on the northbound 427. This is right around the 409. What I can see from this camera visual, it's the center lane and HOV lane are the only lanes getting by following a very serious collision. This is the back end, and from this view, it looks like no traffic is getting through, but at least two lanes managing to squeeze by. It is very backed up from the 401. If you're on the 401, we're in rush hour, so it's a busy go across the top of the city. And checking out the drive on the northbound lanes of the 410. Delays start from Steeles and they continue up towards about Sandalwood. On city streets, a brand new problem. It's on Bathurst, just south of Shepherd. I'll send it back to you both.
Okay, thanks a lot, Adjoa. Well, residents of 25 homes on Pape Avenue, south of Danforth, they're going to have to move out because of construction on the Ontario subway line.
Let's bring in CP24's Lindsay Biscaya for more on the story. So how will this work, Lindsay?
Yeah, well, residents have said that they've learned that Metrolinx will be seizing these homes, Lena and Bakari, all in an effort for public safety, really, and for the safety of these residents because of the Ontario line. So Metrolinx has said that because it's a subway system, obviously, and there will be tunneling underneath these buildings to build the Ontario line, the much-awaited Ontario line. That might cause some structural issues to the homes, and so that's why this is happening. So we're talking about those 25 homes along Pape Avenue, as well as a brand new daycare business. Residents have been told they have until November 1st, 2025 to leave. So really how this works when it comes to expropriation is that Metrolinx will seize these homes. They will compensate the homeowners or tenants, and those homeowners or tenants will then have to, with a relocation specialist, find somewhere else to live. So tenants saying and telling us that, you know, they are most frustrated by the fact that Metrolinx originally was saying this was not going to happen, and now they're hearing the opposite. Have a listen.
It's been frustrating in that for years we've been told it wasn't going to happen, and they, you know, made safeguards for the school so that the kids would feel protected. It's right across the street from our houses, and that it was all, you know, it was all going to work out, and we were all sort of the mind, hey, if we can survive the construction, you know, we'll be in a good place here. We'll be close to transit. It'll benefit our home value. Everything will be golden.
And now I am concerned that maybe the next street is going to be told the same thing, you know, because we are not just individuals, we are a community. And it's affecting us as a community.
Now, Metrolinx saying it's acquiring these homes out of an abundance of caution. It's only acquiring homes that are absolutely necessary for the safety of people in the area, Lena and Bakari. Still a lot of questions, a lot of things up in the air. Metrolinx says it is working with homeowners and tenants for fair compensation and to work out some kind of fair deal. And of course, there is always the opportunity, or the possibility, I should say, that after all this construction is said and done, and after there's been assessments on the buildings to make sure they're safe, these homeowners or tenants could potentially move back in. But of course, that's not for sure until we see what happens with all this construction. Back to you.
All right, Lindsay, thanks so much for this. A Toronto police investigation into tow truck-related crimes has led to murder charges against 2 teenage boys.
And this is where we bring in CP24's crime analyst, Steve Ron, with more details. Steve, you have to explain this to us in the role of these teenagers.
Yeah, a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old, Bakari and Lena. They are the two that police have charged with one count of first-degree murder. Police allege that back in July, the 2 young people were responsible for shooting a 28-year-old man that was sitting inside of his parked car out in Scarborough. So in total, there were 4 people arrested, 177 criminal charges laid. Of those 4 people that were arrested, 2 were young people. One was 15, one was 16. Those 2 young people alone face 155 criminal charges, including 1 count of first-degree murder. So this Project Beacon, was started as a result of the ongoing tow truck disputes, the turf wars, if you will, that happened mostly in the east end of the city. As a result, this project was started with the assistance of Peel Police, Durham Police, and the OPP. The Toronto Police have now charged 4 people. As I said, 2 of them are young people, and the police believe that this tow truck disputes that has been going on have accounted for 14% of the overall shootings in the city this year alone. So this was a significant piece of police work to identify these 4 suspects and get them before the courts, and the police will still monitor this investigation, but this is a good start when it comes to making a dent in stopping this violent turf war that's going on between just a select few tow truck companies in the east end of the city. We did hear from the chief of police today, and we heard from the staff superintendent as well. Here are some of the comments that the staff superintendent made earlier on. Let's have a listen.
It's difficult for young people to really comprehend the consequences of their actions. So the immediate gratification of the money is enticing them to commit the acts of violence. And, you know, the money is for whatever you can assume that young people spend money on.
So the staff superintendent was talking about hiring these 2 young people to commit these violent crimes. The police allege that these 15-year-old and 16-year-old were hired to commit these 11 crimes, including the homicide, but a majority of the tow truck shootings were done by these 2 young people. And the staff was saying that they recruit young people because if they are convicted, they face lighter sentences, and that it costs less money to pay 2 young people to commit these crimes. Big problem all around. Lastly, those 2 young people, one was on a weapons prohibition when he was arrested, and the other one was on a criminal release when arrested. So it goes back to the recidivism that we hear the police talking about all the time. Repeat offenders seem to be doing these violent crimes over and over again. I'll send it back to the desk.
Okay, CP24's crime analyst Steve Ryan live outside of TPS headquarters. Well, Premier Doug Ford has dismissed the idea of holding an early election despite growing speculation that there's going to be a snap poll.
There are reports that there could be an election in the fall. Are you preparing for a fall election?
No.
So, really quick no from the Premier today when he was asked, are you calling for an early election? Politicians have been spending the summer nominating candidates and canvassing just in case. Remember, the question was, are you calling for a fall election? Now, the next provincial election is set for June of 2026, but the Premier recently refused to commit to that timeline, saying he only wants to make sure he fulfills his agenda and keeps his promises. Opposition leader Marit Stiles says the New Democrats are preparing for a possible election as soon as this fall. However, Sabrina Mangi, she's the founder of the Queen's Park Observer, says all signs have pointed to an early election call.
We've seen opposition parties go out door knocking. They've been running these like campaign training sessions, including even the Conservatives. I had a little scoop this week that they will be planning a big training session for like local organizers in October. The NDP and the Liberals are doing that as well. The Liberals have a big policy convention that will help inform their platform coming up in September. And both the opposition parties are now working to nominate their candidates. The Liberals in particular have a bit of a tall order because they don't have so many incumbents. The NDP is also starting with incumbents.
Well, Mangi says that one of the potential reasons for an early call would be to avoid having it as the same time as the federal election, which is currently scheduled for October of next year.
It's now 5:43. We're sitting at 21 degrees tonight, definitely on the cooler side. You're watching Live at 5.
Well, in the U.S., the Democratic National Convention continues in Chicago. We're going to have more on what's happening tonight. More Democratic heavy hitters are set to address the party's national convention in Chicago tonight.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz is among the speakers who will headline the third day of the gathering. He will accept the nomination to be on the presidential ticket under Vice President Kamala Harris, making it official tonight. Organizers say the theme is a fight for our freedoms, as the party really tries to make the case for fundamental freedoms will be at risk if Donald Trump becomes president again. And CTV News national correspondent Vashi Kapelos is in Chicago at the DNC, and she has more on protests that have been happening outside the venue. Take a listen.
There were a few dozen arrests last night, is my understanding, and there was the potential of actually calling in additional security forces that didn't end up having to come to fruition. So the forces that were here were able to, the various police forces, I should say, were able to deal with the matter. And then there are questions about whether or not something similar will happen today, whether there'll be sort of an approach, another approach made to try and come in here. It's been really interesting to see because it's happening outside, but it's not to a degree that's really punching through here. There's not a whole amount of talk about the protest necessarily, at least among the people who are speaking. There are some who are paying reference to it, and particularly the issue at hand, which is the war in Gaza. But beyond that, it's not like throwing the agenda off or anything. That can always change. It's a fluid situation, so we'll keep our eye on it. But right now, that's where things stand.
And former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi will also speak at the convention tonight.
And that's a live shot of the stage in Chicago this hour. We'll have more on that coming up tonight. Meantime, Donald Trump held a rally in North Carolina today, his first outdoor gathering since surviving an assassination attempt last month.
And the Republican nominee is on a week-long trip across the U.S. to draw attention away from the Democrats and their national convention. He spoke from behind a podium surrounded by panes of bulletproof glass, part of ramped-up security measures. Trump rallied against Democratic president nominee Kamala Harris.
We've driven them crazy. They have Trump derangement syndrome. We've driven them crazy, and they should be driven crazy. They've done a terrible job for our country in every single way. There's not a thing they've done well except cheat and lie. They lie about stats. No, they lied about the crime numbers. The crime numbers didn't look bad. Then they found out that many of the worst places weren't included in the numbers. And that was done by the FBI, which is sad.
North Carolina, by the way, is a key battleground state in this election, and Trump won it easily back in 2016.
Well, authorities in Pakistan have charged a man with cyber terrorism for allegedly spreading misinformation that sparked widespread anti-Muslim riots in the UK.
The 32-year-old freelance web developer is accused of posting false information on YouTube and Facebook about the stabbing attack that killed 3 girls at dance class in England last month. The accused claimed the teenage suspect was an asylum seeker and posted a fake name that suggested he was Muslim. That information led to a violent mob attacking a mosque the next day. As part of a week of rioting, police clarified that the stabbing suspect was in fact born in the UK.
A Canadian-Israeli influencer has reportedly been detained in Russia.
Russian media are reporting 45-year-old Joshua Kartu was arrested at an airport in St. Petersburg. Global Affairs Canada confirming it is aware of an arrest involving a Canadian in Russia, but would not provide further details, citing privacy concerns. Canadian officials have contacted local authorities for information and to offer consular assistance.
It's 5:49, 21 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Researchers say there is a link between severe COVID and the risk of depression and anxiety after the infection. We'll have more on this coming up.
And researchers are linking cases of severe COVID to an increased risk of depression and anxiety after the infection. The study published in the journal JAMA Psychiatry, it shows that the link between the virus and mental illness is strongest among people who are not vaccinated against COVID. It also finds that the rates of mental illnesses were higher and lasted longer if a person was hospitalized for the virus. Researchers say that the strongest links were found in older adults and men.
It is now 5:53. We're sitting at 21 degrees tonight. You're watching Live at 5.
Okay, so advice for men who want to age with vitality: get married.
Interesting. We're going to talk to one of the people behind this new University of Toronto study, find out what this is all about. Stay with us.
New research suggests that marriage could be the key to aging with vigor and vitality, especially for men. To put a ring on it.
Well, the study was published in the journal International Social Work. Is that your message? Put a ring on it?
Put a ring on it. Come on.
Joining us for more on the findings is lead author Mabel Ho, a recent doctoral graduate at the University of Toronto. Thanks so much for joining us to talk about this. Look, this is pretty fascinating and interesting. The secret to aging gracefully could be finding a spouse, especially if you're a man. What is this about? What did you find?
Thank you so much for having me. This is a new study that published today in the journal International Social Work. So we used the data from the Canadian longitudinal study on aging to understand relationship between different factors and successful aging. And this paper is particularly about marital trajectory and successful aging. So we found that there is strong association between marriage and successful aging among men, but that's not so significant among women. So it's actually a very interesting study.
Okay, so Mabel, what does it mean to age successfully? What is that? What does that look like?
Right. For almost like 60 years, researchers try to define what successful aging is. The researchers definition usually classify about 1/3 of the population to be successful agers or aging well. But if you ask older adults themselves, over 90% of them will tell you that they're doing well. So we introduce an expanded definition of successful aging, and which is about not having limitations in performing activities of daily living, as well as instrumental of activity of daily living, as in like taking care of yourself and doing shopping and things like that. And also freedom from very serious mental illness, mental problems, memory problems, and disabling pain. And also having social support. And also we asked the older adults about how they see themselves in terms of whether they're...
Mabel, you still there?
Uh-oh.
As well as the physical condition and mental condition.
Okay, what about the women? You kind of touched on this. Several studies suggest that more women are opting out of marriage. Many are choosing not to remarry. How do the results differ if you are a woman?
So the study have shown that marriage seems to have relationship with better health outcome and aging or healthy living. But this study find that we don't find that significant in women. But we do notice that older women who experience like widowhood, separation, or divorce in later life, we're not doing as well as never married women. So that's why we urge that we need to have more programs and services to support older adults. And also lifestyle factors are important too. Maintain a healthy body weight, exercise, sleeping well, and it's never too late to quit smoking.
Okay, Mabel, thanks a lot. Recent doctoral graduate at the University of Toronto. Mabel Holt, lead author. Thanks a lot. Right now it's 5:59, 21 degrees. This is Toronto's breaking news, CP24.
And thanks for watching. CTV News at 6 is coming up next.